everybody, and welcome to our fundraising training session. Sorry, we were just running a little bit behind. We had some technical difficulties on our end. But first up, I want to thank you all for joining today's online event. I would like to go over a couple of housekeeping rules first. There's no need to take screenshots as we will record the video and share with yourselves as well as the presentation following this webinar. And if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please post them in the GoToWebinar control panel and we will address them at the end. It's just on your side of your screen. So without further ado, I'm going to make two introductions today. Our first introduction is going to be Axel Schulter. He is the founder and chairman of the World Innovations Forum. If you've been on our past webinars, you already know him. Axel is a highly successful entrepreneur who spent most of his business life in Silicon Valley and started and exited 4 companies, 1 IPO'd. He successfully raised almost 20 rounds of funding from VCs, angels, and 4 from crowdfunding. He also helped raise countless rounds of funding for startups. And our second speaker that we will have, who will speak a little bit later, let me introduce you to Marita Schulter. Many of you may already know who she is. She co-founded 3 of the 4 companies, plus the World Innovations Forum Foundation, and will help you fine-tune your presentation if you need any support. She single-handedly raised $32 million in round and knows what it takes to start a new company. So without further ado, I will let Axel get started.
All right, thank you very much, Alyssa. And yeah, also welcome from my side to our fundraising and pitch training. And what I'd like to do is give you a bit of an insight in what I learned in all my companies and fundraising and pitches, and also from actually what I helped startups to do, and obviously from lots and lots and lots and lots of investors. So let me start here. So this is probably where I learned most of my fundraising techniques and fundraising successes and also failures. Because I think there's nobody who is not screwing up a pitch once in a while. But I learned a lot, and I learned a lot from very cool people. One of them was the co-founder of Sun Microsystems, who told me once about a pitch where he screwed up, and he had basically forgotten about the pitch. And so he went and rushed to this VC, had 1 page with a list of 10 items he wanted to talk about, and he presented this 1-pager, and people closed the box, and he thought, oh shit, this was complete a screw up. And he said, you know, done. You guys are awesome. Yeah, we'll take the own. And so I thought this is so cool, so I tried it myself. And actually it worked pretty well. So a 1-slide presentation. But this was already my C round. I was already kind of known for what we were doing, so it was a little bit easier. So I would not recommend that you try it in your first round of funding. But I say this because fundraising is a very, how to say, fine-tuned art and science. And we don't need to forget the arts. So what I'd like to start with is that you should not even try to pitch like, you know, Steve Jobs or anybody. The most important thing about pitching and fundraising, and this is, I mean, obviously this is very close connected to each other, is that you need to know what your investors really want, and at the same time understand why they want it. Because what I learned over all these years, people said, no, you cannot do this, investors would not buy it. You need to do that in order to find an investor. And this was, I mean, me being an entrepreneur and rule breaker, I thought, I don't want to pitch something to an investor if this is not my belief system. And I realized, yeah, I should not, and I should never. But nobody told me for a while until I really realized, okay, that would be really terrible. So therefore, you need to know your story. It's all about your story. And if your story is genuine, meaning real, this is your honest way of thinking and doing, then this is the best way to actually present your company. Everything else is rubbish. Don't do all, I mean, these typical, these are the things that you need to talk, and these are the things you better not talk because investors don't like it. Because investors don't like certain things for only one reason, that they realized from thousands of pitches and hundreds of investments that certain things don't work. So for instance, the solopreneurs is one of these things. I mean, you hear about it and the people debate it and people say, come on, look for a different investor. This is an idiot. You're doing a great job and try with somebody else. Well, there's a reason why investors don't want to invest in solopreneurs. And the reason is in the last 30 plus years, there is not a single company, and not just tech, biotech, a pharmaceutical, and I mean, you name it, not a single company where a solopreneur made it to the top. So if that is a pattern, then the likelihood that investors will invest in a solopreneur is simply extremely low. And then if we're realizing why that is, because there is, the counter argument is that, I mean, there was a Carl Benz. I mean, he was basically the founder of the Mercedes-Benz company, of Daimler-Benz. And there was Robert Bosch. He was a single founder. And this worked out well. Why shouldn't it be today? Well, if you look at the pattern of these companies, I mean, Mercedes took about 30 years, 30 years, to get international. And Robert Bosch was a little bit faster than that, but he was running around like crazy. And he had some very good, super loyal engineers in his company who did not even want to become an investor. This was, a different time as well. But so there were situations where this worked back in the old days, so to speak, 100 or 200 years ago. But at the same time, we have, our pattern today is that, you have an idea, and the moment you are determined to make this company, you have basically 6 months to get into the market with your prototype. And if it takes much longer, then investors are already shy because they're saying, okay, what took so long? I mean, this is just out of the ordinary and the risk is high and the startups are hundreds of thousands out there. And that's the other difference to like 200 years ago when solopreneurs went up. There was one and tried it and excited the world, and then obviously investors wanted to invest. So try to understand why certain people don't like certain things and not cater to them because you say, I need this investment, so therefore I need to do this in order to make them happy. That would be the stupidest thing in the world. But understand why they don't like certain things. And then if that applies to you and you can conform with this and say, oh yeah, I mean, I understand, time is money, and most companies start quickly and grow very quickly, and this is what makes them successful. So this is why investors go after that. So that pattern seems to be a good one. Then you have to, get up and be faster than you are today. So the other thing that I'd like to share with you, and then we're diving already into it, is watch your stage, where you are, and what type of investors you want. And obviously, when you're presenting on the World Innovations Forum, you don't see the investors, and this is actually similar on many pitch events. You don't see who is a early stage investor or late stage investor and so on. But important for you to understand is sort of also here the pattern. So idea stage, very, very few investors invest. And when you see these, guy had an idea on a napkin and found an investor and got a $2 million seed round. Well, yeah, there is a reason for, but it's probably not you that get a seed round with $2 million investment based on a napkin. It's people who have been successful before, and that's their second or third startup. So when we started Blue Roads, that was my third company. I went out and had one of these $2 million seed round investments, basically with an idea. But people know what I did before. There was one company that, eventually became a billion-dollar company, and the second is on the way. But back, 20 years ago, it wasn't quite that. But both companies were very, very successful. And so they thought, okay, this guy knows what he's doing, so I think this is good. So then he can start fast, and we did. But typically on an idea stage, forget investment. And I think it is actually a good idea, because you would most likely ruin a lot of money from investors that trust in you, and then you screw up with crazy ideas that didn't work and you didn't even try and test it. So, I mean, don't even try. On concept stage, the same thing. Even if you have a rock solid concept, very few investors will invest. And I would, again, not even try finding them, because there is a rule: a good entrepreneur can build something out of nothing. And this is particularly in in emerging and developing countries, a foreign concept. This, no, I need money in order to do something. I don't have any money, and without money I can't do. Well, that is wrong. That is, I don't know where this thinking comes from, but this is completely wrong. I started my first company with nothing. And actually my second company, because the first company was while I was in the army and it didn't actually work out, I still hadn't anything. And so I started my second company, which was actually my first real company, again, with nothing. And we worked for 3 months, no pay. I mean, the only money I had to have was basically savings from the previous time, where I had a little bit so I could survive. My rent, food, and that was it. I had a startup coming up to me. This was in San Francisco, and I think he was from somewhere in Europe. And he said, he can't start. I mean, equipment is expensive and he has to live. He has no savings and so on. And I said, okay, yeah. And so I talked to him a little bit, wanted to ask my question a little bit later. Said, what kind of car do you drive? I have an old 316 BMW. Oh, cool. So what is it worth? They're going to say old, maybe 10,000. So here's your capital. Sell your car. He looked at me and said, I cannot sell my car. I say, why not? I sold my drums, which is obviously not a car, but my drums was everything, so to speak, I had. I saved money for, I was the drummer in the band, and so I had to sell my drums, and that was a piece of my heart. But I wanted to start this company. And so he realized, okay, there is more to it than just, hobby, building something and trying to make a big business. No, you have to basically invest everything you have, plus more, plus the ones from your friend and your family. And there's a reason why friends and family is a big deal for every investor. If your friends and your family don't invest, there are 2 reasons. One is you didn't ask because you didn't want their money because it's too risky. The second is they didn't invest because they don't trust anything what you're saying, and therefore it is too risky for them. In both cases, it's too much risk. And if an investor who has about roughly 800,000 startups here today, June 2020, to invest in, then this high risk stuff where you don't invest, your friends don't invest, and your family doesn't invest, I mean, why should they invest? I mean, that would be ridiculous. And so you're seeing that investing is not like, oh, there are some super crazy big fat ass guys with lots of money and they just invest because they don't, for them it's just peanuts. Well, first of all, if somebody made money, then they realized that money is something they have to earn, and they worked very hard for it, and they have paid already tax for it. And it isn't that they have a lot of money and then they don't, billionaires, I mean, they can give me easy and it doesn't even show up on their bank account. Well, it does show up on their bank account regardless, right? So when you get into traction mode, which means after you build some beta test, and let's assume you don't have an investor, and you get traction because you can, this is your ingenuity of being an entrepreneur. You can sell a couple things, even pre-sell, because the prototype you may not be able to sell, but tell people if they prepay, that's how you build your products. then you get some traction. And that attracts the most interesting investors, because these are people that they know what it takes. They would not invest before, and they see that you don't have investors, which is a good thing because you made it that far without investment. Then these investors will love you and you will love them because they are profis. They're professional investors who know what they're doing and they know what they're investing in. And then the rest is basically history. So consider your stage very carefully and try everything humanly possible before you take an investment, because you have 100% on a scale from 1 to 100. That's basically a meter or a little bit a yard or whatever. And every one of these 1% you take away and give away will never come back, but they grow in value. So if you give somebody 10% because you think it's important, they build you the website and the friends do the bookkeeping for you, and so forth and so forth. If you are 2 to 3 million company value in 2 years, which is probably very likely, maybe even more, then you would have just given away $200,000 to $300,000 for somebody building a website and helping with your bookkeeping. That's the most expensive investment you ever did. And therefore, you just hopefully don't do it. Every single percent today is roughly 100,000 and more, basically in a couple of years. And so, be very cautious with this 1%, and it doesn't come back, never ever. So the question is now, when it comes to investment, what are these guys really, really wanting from you? What investors are, so to speak, really behind? And there is, some people tell you it's 3 things. And I start with these three things: team, team, team. Honestly, and please forgive me for my language, they don't give a shit about your product. And if they do, then you need to be very careful who these investors are. Because people who are very interested in your product are typically not professional or savvy investors. They're basically people who also want to play. I mean, it's a hobby, cool technology, tell me what you have, and you can do it this way, and can you do it that way, and so on. These are not business people. These are not business investors, and your company is a business and nothing else. It is not a development lab. It's not a scientific lab. It's not a hobby box. It's nothing like that. It's a business, hopefully. And if not, then you better consider taking a job and put your hobby on the side. So after they discovered that this team is good, and team means a diverse team. Ideally, best composition still today is 3 founders. One is the subject matter expert, which is in a tech company, it's an engineer. In a scientific company, is some sort of scientist. In a pharmaceutical company, is probably a chemist or biologist. In rocket company, it's a rocket scientist, or it's a mechanical engineer or something like that. So this is the subject matter expert. The next is typically the business person. And the business person who will most likely be the CEO sooner or later is the one that he can orchestrate a business and drives business, meaning driving sale every single day. Customer, market, sale, and looking for the rest of the time that the operation works, the development works, the production works, the logistics works, the team works, that better team members come on board, and so forth. So this driver, let's see, the Chief Executive Officer, and I please understand the name. Chief, he is the Chief Executive. Comes from execution. He is the Chief Execution Officer, and he runs as an officer the company. He is typically, 99% of the cases, not the developer of the product. And then the third person is probably the salesperson. And the salesperson is somebody who is in the market every single day. And if you have a chief executive officer, takes care of the business, takes care of the finance of the operation, that everything works and goes in the right direction, somebody who builds the product and somebody who is actually selling the product, and that is a dream team composition. So if this team is together, then you're looking into, as an investor, into the vision of the company. Where do these guys want to take it? And if you were saying, well, 10 years, I have no clue. Well, this is average Joe has no clue, and this is absolutely correct. And if we look at the trajectory of the last 10 years and the last 20 years, we see, okay, we had no idea that we will have Corona all of a sudden. Obviously, this cannot be anticipated or planned or or envisioned. But it doesn't matter. I mean, life goes on afterwards a little bit differently, and this is where we navigate our company to, but it goes on with or without it. But the interesting thing is that 10 years ago was, right around 10 years ago, was blockchain. You heard of it, right? And where are we with blockchain? Not that far. AI, where are we with AI? Not that far. 3D printers, guess what? 1989. So you see that products that become mainstream have been developed, thought out 10 years, 20 years ago. I mean, the personal computer, I don't even remember. Internet, 1960s. E-commerce, 1984 or 5. And so if we cannot envision now 10 years ahead of us, then we need to do our homework, because we can. Everything what is in 10 years mainstream is already developed, is already in prototype stage somewhere in the market. And as an entrepreneur, you are requested to be connected in your ecosystem with your peers. And if you just sit in your cellar or kitchen and just do it at your home, your work, and are not connected with the rest of your sort of startup industry, well, that's a problem. So therefore, the vision is important for you to build, not just for investors, but if you don't know where to go, the only one who knows is sort of the rest of the market and drives you in a direction that you don't have control over. Then a disruptive business model is something that investors like, because all the past 10 years companies had a disruptive business model. And every of these super startups basically disrupted their market with a disruptive business model. So if you don't have that, and you have just advertising as a business model, that is not disruptive at all. Then, you know, some investors may say, sorry, this is not interesting. And you wonder why. And there is one unfortunate thing that investors typically don't tell you, why they are not interesting. Some do, but I would say 90% don't. And so this is a fact of life, and therefore you have to be well connected in your ecosystem with your peers and learn from them. How did it go? Did they invest? Did they not invest? What do you think? Why they didn't? I don't know. I believe it's that. And some other people may chime into this conversation and tell, well, probably it's that. And this is something, obviously, you know, I have been blessed in my life living in San Francisco and basically in Palo Alto before, because we're talking, I mean, regularly, and not just by accident, but actually by purpose. So I remember I went to one of my meetings with my lead investor, and he said, Axel, you got to meet Chip Overstreet. He is in your space, also software service company, not quite in your market, but different, a little bit different. But I would like to meet him, and you exchange your strategies. And I thought, what? I should exchange a strategy with somebody who's sort of close, possible competitor? I didn't say, are you crazy? I thought, okay, these guys invested a lot in me, so well, I'll just give it a shot, because I know transparency is a big deal in Silicon Valley. And so I started to talk to him about my strategy, and he told me his. And we figured out there's a lot of learning. And this was probably one of the most intense moments in my Silicon Valley life where I realized, you know, all this old learning, you know, transparency, openness, work together, learn from each other every day, every single moment, the more the better. That drove success more than anything else. And if you keep everything close to your chest and be sort of secretive and have a big fear that people will actually steal your ideas, you're off. I mean, it's very difficult to be successful in this world with this old behavior. And I say old behavior because, you know, I learned it from my father, and you probably from your parents, and people are still very suspicious about anything that regards to open. But you are, as an entrepreneur, one of these 0.007% of humans, meaning, I mean, impossibly small number compared to the rest of us. You have to adapt different ways in order to succeed in this world. And then a go-to-market strategy is something every investor wants. They want you to present on a single page and basically within more or less 30 seconds, but what you have, how you do it, how you go to market, and how you be successful with it, and your success is already. And you can do this in 30 to 45 seconds because you have only 3 minutes to pitch it all, right? And then a short word about simple and scalable solutions. I mean, you can tell people, you know, if it's software, that's obviously the most scalable because you simply copy your software, so that's easy. But even if it's hardware, tell people, you know, where do you produce? Probably in China or anywhere else, and they produce so fast that, you know, they produce more than you can sell. So your limitation on scalability is not the production. So then there is another piece to the investment world is about, again, what investor really wants is when you present the business. Don't present your also beloved technology. I mean, save the technology part to one slide and one slide only, and buy time by having them after the presentation, you know, asking you a gazillion times about your technology. That is when you win. But when you focus on the technology and let them ask on the business side, then you will lose because they're investing not in a technology. They don't invest in a product. They invest in a team and the team's way of running a business. So this is where your focus must be on the business side, not on the technology side. And if they ask later on, you know, you can talk all about and answer all their questions. But again, investments are made in a company, not in you and your product. Well, in you and your team, that is company. Company is the legal body of you and your team. But your product, obviously it is important. I know, I mean, without product, they wouldn't invest. But in the presentation, it is not the key. The key in the presentation is you, your team, and the business. So when you got this kind of structure pretty easily done, then you need to ask yourself, what are your needs? Not necessarily the needs of the investors. And so the biggest thing is how much you really, really, really need. Remember, 1% gone never comes back. And you can only sell 49% in the next 10 years until you make an IPO. 49% in 10 years. That's 4.9% in a year. And in the beginning with 4.9%, you're probably not going to go very far. So you will give up 15. And then that means you have only 35. Now it shrinks down to 3.5 a year. And you know what that means. That's very, very tough. So therefore, have a detailed plan. How much money do you really need when you want to grow at maximum speed? And maximum speed is how many people can you hire in the next year and train and make them productive and make them successful. And the only one who can hire them is you personally, or maybe your partner. Maybe you split it between the two. And it's not just the hiring. it's also making them work and, you know, working them, integrating them in the company and so forth. So when you look at what you can do and see what the maximum progress is that you can perform based on your successes that you already have as the founders team, meaning successes in terms of sales and selling products into the market, then you know what you can do, and that is basically determining the money that you need. So without that, don't even go fundraising. If you think, oh, I need $1 million, I need 2 million, I need $500,000, I need 100,000, you know, whatever. If you don't know exactly how much, stop here, figure it out first, and then come back. Oops, sorry. That was. So then another huge topic is valuation. And valuation fluctuates with economic situation. So right now, these numbers may not be quite okay, but who cares about the here and now? We're all living in the future. So 8 to 20x forward-looking revenue is a good number to work on. And the 8 to 20x of your forward-looking revenue means revenue for the next 12 months. And looking back, revenue for the last 3 to 6 months at the minimum, really minimum, and better, you know, last year or so. So the 8 to 20 also correlates heavily with the past revenue. Now you may say, I don't have any revenue yet. Okay, so stop everything you were thinking about, create revenue, and then go fundraising. And so I know that this is extremely tough, and I know that most of you would say impossible. And some of you already have revenue, so that's cool. But those who think it's impossible, I can tell you that, you know, again, my own experience, I mean, these are the best probably I have because I know how it worked out. So my lead investor said, this was my second company. Okay, so, no, third. The first two, I had actually revenue very quickly. He said, okay, you got to have revenue in 6 months. And I said, no, no way possible. It's an enterprise software solution. I mean, the architecture and yada, yada, yada. And he said, da, 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 I know. I had this too, 6 months or nothing. Okay, 6 months later, we had revenue from a large enterprise. I didn't believe this is working, but I learned from him how to make it work. And this is what I did later on, and I had to promise him to do that with other startups. And, you know, we were doing this in 6 years. One of our startups came, they started in June. They came to our accelerator in September, and I told them that they had to do revenue by the end of the year. And he said, there's no way in heaven. We're in the food industry, baby food. I mean, all the regulations that we have, there is just no way. And I said, I know. I mean, everybody says this, but there must be a way. This is the pattern that we need to see that you were creative enough to make it work. And long story short, December, I think it was December 23, first revenue, boom. And it was amazing. I actually have to admit, and I admitted to him too, that I didn't believe he's going to make it, but he did. And so it works when you go with very focus on to your valuation. And the valuation is something that you, the CEO, the Chief Execution Officer, will fight for the next 7 to 12 years, every single year. And thereafter, you will still fight for it, but it's part of your second nature. So you wouldn't even think about it anymore. But your value of the company depends on the valuation that you can actually create. And here it starts. And if we look at the 8 to 20x forward-looking revenue, it's very connected to revenue. And then there is the other things. So if your revenue is less than 3 months and you have not really a solid looking forward revenue, then the 8 collapses down to 4 immediately. And that would be even cool. Complete team of top people. Top people meaning what I told you before, a top founders team, and maybe one or the other who are helping you. If that's not happening, the 4 would be basically collapse 2 or to 1. if people invest at all. Clear vision and company direction. Where will you be in the next couple of years and why? A plausible, ideally disruptive business model. How do you make money, and is this a plausible model? And you can see that the further down you get in the list and the weaker you get on this list, the lower gets the valuation. Until if you say, well, this is all weak, then there is no valuation, there's no investment. And this is why most people fail to get investment. So we have this drama number, only 10 in some parts of the world, even less than 10% of startups make it. And people say, we don't have investors. Unfortunately, or fortunately, actually, that's not true. There are investors everywhere in the world. Investors don't look at geographies. I mean, seed investors, they do, but also only because there's so many companies to invest in. But you will get investment no matter where you live. I mean, we have a lot of people here from Nepal, and I know they're Nepali investors. I spoke to them. There's at least 3. We were actually discussing building an angel network in Nepal. And so there are investors, and it's not a lot of money you need to start unless you have some crazy ideas and brain farts, so to speak, that are unrealistic. So it's not a problem. But also these investors get trained, and in a worst case for people like me, what to look for. And if you don't have a company that is attractive for an investor, then yeah, obviously investment is very, very poor. So here's the counter, and this is something I put together, and investors actually said, don't tell them everything about it. I mean, they need to come up with their own ideas. And so this is countless arguments back and forth. I still do it because I know that your own ideas cannot know anything and everything. So therefore, here it comes. Teams work part-time elsewhere is a very bad sign. Solopreneurs or apreneur with 50+% equity, meaning dominating company, very, very bad for investment. All tech or all marketing or all sales are all the same type. We had a startup with 6 medical doctors who want to start a company, and I told them we're not the right people for that. And they couldn't believe it. They say, I mean, we're some of the smartest. We have all these rewards and so on. No, teams need to be compositive. There's different types of people, different types of activities. The market is different and so on. Then hiring a CTO or outsourcing development, really bad. I mean, if you can't find a CTO as a co-founder, then that means that you don't have the attraction to other people, to other top people. And if you cannot attract other top people, you will not be able to attract other top people in the future. So therefore, find your co-founders, find your CTO, don't hire him or she, take them into your founders team, work 6 to 9 months for free, have equity, have 20, 30, 40, 50% equity and work with you. Advertising business model is a total no-go. Money needed to start a company, totally lame. I mean, good entrepreneurs get something done with nothing. Local focus, unclear future, lame. XYZ company with .io, .net, .co, .stupid, .whatever. I mean, the typical human behavior, if they're looking for a URL, it's .com. And if it's somebody who's looking only locally, obviously then it's .ch, .np, .something. Local companies don't need investments. They can start with their local network and build a first product, get some payment and get going. Investors look for people who can grow a big company, and that's .com. I mean, commercial, worldwide, has nothing to do with US or anything, .com. There's also .us, but looking for those. These are just examples to give you a little bit of snapshot of where not to go. And then you still need to own 50% by the time of the IPO. And if you don't, there is no IPO for you. There is no IPO in the last, there are 2 IPOs in the last 20 years where the founders team were below 50%. One is Twitter, and it's still starving and still struggling. And the other, I forgot actually the name. So when you look into those, here's Google and every one of these bigger IPOs, people said, how could Elon Musk, with all that he does, be still the CEO? How could Mark Benioff? That was this long discussion in the Valley. He had 50 point something percent, he and his team. And if not, investors are fearful people. Entrepreneurs are fearless people. Entrepreneurs do experimentation with big stuff. Investors would prevent that. Investors are conservative, and entrepreneurs are not. These are 180-degree orthogonal minds. And if one of them, the investors, take over a company, well, then this is like in a very big company. Then the machine operates like an administration. There's no more innovation. There's no more growth. There's no more any of that. So a startup to IPO can only be driven by the startup owners. And if there is no owner anymore, because the owners together have less than 50%, they have no saying anymore. And then, forget about all these tactics and these structures of voting rights and all this mess. Simply forget it. Give no more than 15%, seed round, keep 70% after the A round, and then you go in the right direction. And here's an example. Now, 15% gets you down to 85, another 15% to 72, another 10% to 65, and so on. You see, after the E round, which is probably a 3%, a small one, 54%. This is good for an IPO. If you give 25 and you own 75, the next comes in as you see the pattern. Well, if you gave to the angels 25, VC, at least when I have 25, you're already at 56, very close to the 50. The next round must be you're underwater. And I had 2 startups in our accelerator teaching that. They still said, yeah, I need to do that. Both failed. Because a good investor, top VC, is not going into a company where the owners or the starters, so to speak, the previous owners have less than 50%, because all they have to do the negotiation with is with other VCs. And then this becomes a VC-driven company. And there is not a single VC-driven company ever who made an IPO. So be super careful with your every single percent that you can give out. Here's an interesting story, $100 million exit, get satisfaction. Went like a wildfire through Silicon Valley, because when one of the founders said, don't congratulate me, the acquisition was successful, but we didn't get anything out of it, really bad. So it's not about being greedy to control the company. It's not about being a control freak to control the company, but you need to be able to steer your business all the way through. And if you don't, boom, you see that. So that the VCs could basically sell the company for 100 million without giving these guys a penny was possible, based on the structure of the company, driven by the dominant owners were VCs, and these guys didn't have to say anything. 40-something% still, but they were washed out because of the regulations in their contracts. There's all kinds of privileges that you can get, and all kinds of rules in your contracts from venture capital firms. They go get out their money or 3x liquidation preference, and this is what happened here. They put in 34 million and had a 3x liquidation preference. That means 3x of what they put in goes first to them. 100 million goes to them. They get nothing. So here's an interesting structure. This was Facebook. Somebody asked this in Quora. And as you can see, how the rounds worked in the beginning. So also here, 10% in September 04 was sort of part of a seed round, another one with 12.7%. Altogether, it's about 20%. then 5, 1.6, 0.9, then a non-dilutive one. This was a tricky one. Then 1.3%, 0.8%, and so forth. And that made the leaders, Mark Zuckerberg and his co-founders, basically stay with 52, I believe, was, or 54 at IPO. And people said, you know, the kid need to go away. We need to have a bankable CEO. I mean, Facebook would be flat on its face with one of these classical IPO CEOs who run large operations, but not an innovative company. So look for value-added investors, because what I tell you or told you, you will also hear from very experienced startup and early stage and growth stage investors. And they help you more than anything else. They don't screw you, because if they invested millions in you, they want you, and they invested in you, they want you to drive the company forward. And everything else, just try to forget it. Because these people who are, oh yeah, I invest easily, you know, you tell me and I sign a check. Not a good investor, because they need to be critical. They need to turn you upside down and inside out. And if they know and fully understand that this is a good concept that you have, then they will also be able, based on their judgment, to get you further. So here is a perfect pitch. And this pitch has evolved over years, I have to say, and it diverts from what most people learn. Because still today, in most universities, actually there is a learning, and this has been percolated through the globe. You start with a problem, then you have the solution, then you talk about the market, and yada, 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 and then the last slide is you show your wonderful team. And yeah, I mean, that's the way it is, you know. One started and said, this is good, and then everybody else copied it. But we realized that was not a good idea. So we came up over the years with pitches that I learned from my investors. I learned from very cool people who raised money, you know, cool CEOs. And so we started to break the rule. This was about 2008, 2009-ish. And that was the result. We start with a success story and not with a problem. And the reason is, when you start with a problem, what does the other people do? They try to verify the problem. Is that really a problem? Did the investor see that problem too? And when you're on the next slide, he's still probably arguing whether this problem is really big enough and whether you understand it right. And then you're already on a third slide, and he's still thinking and comparing this with a problem. That's a very bad idea. When you start with a success, and you can say, this is our success story. Well, that is your success stories, and they have to simply believe that this is true what you tell them. You get them right away. And then you talk about the traction that you created. You know, that will get your full attention. So start positive and not negative. And then you introduce your awesome team. Now, our traction and the success we had is with that team. Then you talk about how the idea goes, you know, just about 20 seconds. And then how do you disrupt the market and the current product, and then the business model, the go-to-market strategy. And interestingly enough, you've never talked about the problem. So startup investors want to know what the problem is that you're solving, and you don't, and I tell you that you don't tell them. Well, I show you one slide where you actually catch that without making it the problem slide. So let me start real quick. So you start with your name. My name is Axel from XYZ company, and we do this and that. With this 3-second intro, name, the company, and what you do with one sentence already put them into the position to understanding where you go. And you say, my name is Axel Schulz. And not, my name is Axel Schulz. People try to basically sloppy go over the intros. Well, that's terrible, because the intro is, this is you, and this is what you do, and right? So, and then you talk about your success. So we had one company where we got relatively quickly about 5,000 users. And this was a little thing from Twitter, the Shorty Award, and everybody who wanted to be participating in this basically started to drum up, friends. And this is what we did. And we put this actually in our presentation back then. And it was just, quote unquote, just social media. We had a prototype. We didn't have a product. We didn't even have a business model back then. But that was our success story. And this is what we started. And we realized, wow, everybody was, they were awake right away because we had success out of the gate. And what most startup entrepreneurs do, particularly those with a technical background, they don't have a success. We don't have anything because they're very factual on their technology side. They have completely forgotten that they already started something, that you made actually that company, which is a success in itself, and you had a reason for doing that, and you had feedback from the market, at least hopefully, and all that is part of the success story. Then you show some traction. This is what we always did. We track our Alexa ranking. World Innovations Forum, I think we started with 2.5 million a little over a year ago, and we're now at under 60,000. So we're one of the top 60,000 websites in the world. And that is a huge traction. We bypassed probably 70% of companies in our space who are helping, economic development and so on. We're in the league of the top NGOs simply because we're driving traction every single day. You see what Alyssa does every single day, and that is traction. And if you show this to your investors, well, this is indebatable. This is very clearly you are out in the market with a lot of calls for your website. So share it. And if you don't, make sure you have it. And if you don't have anybody, stop your business right here and get a marketing person on board. And if you can't afford it, make it co-founder. And if you can attract co-founders, shut down. Sorry to be so brutal, but this world is not a hobby world. We're not a makers conference where everybody does a little bit. If you're running for capital and get funding, and typically you're talking about millions down the road, then you have to do something that warrants putting millions into your company. So then the third is your team, and you're proud of your team. You tell the investors that this is the most brilliant team you ever could have. Boom. And then you talk your experience. We recognize that the following problem, and here's our problem slide, without being a problem slide, but an experience slide. The following problem, The solutions that are out there, like XYZ and ABC and so forth, did not quite do the job that we like to have. That is already your competition analysis. There are about 5 million so-and-so people who have the same issue. That's your market. And with about 7 billion years of spending, we saw an opportunity. So not only that you have the problem, the market, and the market size, and the target audience in one slide, it's so carefully interwoven that it bears the logic in itself. We recognize the following problem. Solutions like these didn't work out for us. There are so and so many people who have the same issues. They're spending so and so much money on average in that space. And so we saw the opportunity. Very logical. And this slide is probably one of the most important slides of the deck because it gives everything across you need. And again, the sophisticated investors have seen these gazillion, trillion, billion-dollar markets long time before you, 1,000 times probably. And they have seen all the audiences and so on. But this is now very zoomed into actually what you're doing with and for whom and what they already spend. And this may be actually 100 million or something like that. Way more realistic than these gigantic global numbers that don't relate to your particular solution. So if this worked out and you have that across, then you fundamentally change something. We decided to focus on XYZs, on these, whatever emerging markets. We redesigned these processes and helped and so on. And this will help about 2 million people with 1 billion of consumption, which is basically the revenue that we anticipate over the next 5 to 7 years, or whatever time frame you believe you can do. Again, very targeted and focused based on the numbers you just presented. Plausibility. Investor would say, okay, they know their stuff. And then you come up with your product. This is already slide 6 from 10. And you see here this magical printing machine. That is what you have. And you explain real quick what it does. You don't get into details. And you may even not show screenshots, but a scenario where the problem basically occurs. And maybe you have a little screenshot of this software or something like that. Or you have your prototyping, your prototype there. But just talk to it. Don't mess with details, not at that stage. And then you talk to your business model. Our products are free. Service contract is mandatory, and we charge so-and-so one per month. We're expecting 3 million this year. $2 for each of the services we contribute to the World Innovations Forum. That would be actually really nice of you. We provide video training, so support is free through YouTube, community supported users, and we deliver through partners and online commerce providers. So you have your entire business model, what you charge, how do you deliver, how do you service, how is your partner network in one slide. Because this is how you run your business, how you make money. And the product is free is a cool one to start with, and people see immediately that this is actually a sophisticated business model. So then you talk to your go-to-market strategy. And this is the second most important slide, because 90 out of 100 startups fail on this one because they have no clue how they actually bring their product to market, because they're so focused on building the product in the first place, and there's nobody in the company who thinks a little bit broader, therefore fail. So make sure that you can articulate your go-to-market strategy in one slide. Whether you have direct sales or indirect sales, totally doesn't matter. But you have something, and you share that with your audience. Direct sales initiative to thousands of contacts. This is our sales team. And we have right now only me. Perfectly fair to say. And I did so and so much sale already. We have currently reached 8,000 contacts from referral programs, our partners. Conducting monthly meetups, generating leads, sponsoring user-organized meetups. We need about $500. Generate leads. User referral program generates leads. Stimulating users, sharing experiences on YouTube. That's a value-based branding. And because you want your brand to become the knowledge contributor also in your space. Social media interaction and so forth. Again, value-based branding. So if this is your go-to-market strategy, it tells their sales, their referral programs, lead generation, and you want to brand your business around value. Okay, that could work. And if yours is entirely different, doesn't matter. But be, please, so kind, and make it so that in one slide, an investor understands how you go to market and what are these activities that where you do when you go to market actually result on leads, sales, whatever it is. Then slide number 9, 120,000, maybe your seed round from funding, February 2019 by friends and family. Bootstrapping ever since. Current revenue, 5,800 on average per month. And our current burn rate is about 21,000 per month. So as you can see, we're shy 150,000. So we're eating up our seed round, and we have 20% growth per month. Put the growth associated to your burn rate. because otherwise you just burn money. But since you grow, you need to add more people, and that's where your growth comes in. And that is what somebody will invest in. Investors hate to invest in advancing your current technology, doing this and that, hiring more people of those, spending advertising dollars. They hate it. I hate it too, I have to say. 20 years ago, I was loving doing the advertising, but it's just, it has changed. The world has changed. So, and you're seeking now 650,000 as a seed round, and you have to know your valuation. Remember, 8 to 20x, and then you have your list, and therefore you say, okay, 4x forward-looking revenue may be actually good enough, then you say so. So here's your 10th and last slide. Where do you want to take it? We're seeking 650,000 to grow. We're hiring salespeople based on your initial experience and processes. Because if you don't have experience with sale yet, and you would hire for salesperson people, that would be a huge waste of money. In this case, you would only hire one and try to figure out how sales works. And if that works well, then you hire a second and a third and so forth. You may want to hire a marketing person, 2,000 per month for events, enhancing your application with a robust analytics engine. Okay, people understand that that is a piece of money that you will need to spend, for instance, in a software company. Growing to 3 million this year, 30 million in 3 years, and 100 million in 5 years. Okay, that's a word. Obviously, you put your reputation on the line if you don't hit the goal. So therefore, slide 1, understand your vision, understand where you go. And then we see an opportunity to get to the company to an IPO, and then you say investor exit. I don't know why, probably the same stupid reason. Universities teach you have an exit strategy. Investors, at least those who are savvy, will fire you when you come up. I mean, thank you, next, when you come with your exit strategy. And if you think about it, I mean, think logical, common sense. There is somebody who wants money for the company, but is already thinking about the exit. I mean, didn't even start and thinking about exit. How bizarre is that? I mean, the investor wants an exit at one point in time. How do I get my money back? Yeah, IPO, mergers, acquisitions, and so on, obviously. But let them ask and tell them this is how you, dear investor, might get the money back. But you are in it for the rest of your life, hopefully. This is your last slide. No thank you slide. Sorry being unpolite, but I would highly recommend not doing it. And here's the reason. You stop here and you leave that, and then you have questions and be happy to answer it. Now, this is a little bit of psychology, but you leave that burning into their brain. This is what you need. 650K. You want salespeople, you want marketing, you want to grow it, you want to grow to 3 to 30 to 100 million, and IPO is your goal. This is the essence of your business. And if that burns into their brain and they think, I mean, bold enough, but yeah, I mean, cool idea, might be possible. That's what you want. You don't want to have a thank you slide at this very stage, because the Q&A will leave that while you're running. You may flip back, you may flip forward into some backup slides when they say, have your detailed financials? Of course we have. Here's our P&L. Do you have a balance sheet with you? Of course I have. Here's it is. Do you have some roadmap of your product? Of course we have a roadmap for a product. Do you have a sales plan? Absolutely. Do you have a sales strategy? We have that too. So you have probably 20 slides in the backup of your presentation. I mean, not when you present at the forum or at big events, but when you present to investors while you're there. So, special slide. And this is the only slide that for the World Innovations Forum presenters. When you finish, you do one more slide. And this is showing what you actually have to sell. What is it what you can offer to the audience. Because one thing we believe we can help with is if we have 1,000 or 2,000 people out there and you have a new whatever, a drone or robot or a toy or some nanotubes or a 3D printer to print houses in Afghanistan or whatever, tell them that you would want to sell this. And if somebody's interested, should talk to you. Maybe you put your email address here once again. So this is the only sales slide we would actually ever have on our conferences, but you as a startup, you need to sell. You need to drive revenue, money, and traction. And if you do that, that's a little extra bonus for your presentation in two ways. One, investors, we believe we will have probably around 100 investors, maybe 500. It's very hard to tell at this stage. But we have between 100 and 500 investors. And if they see that you have something ready to sell to a global market that you have basically in front of you, that will be a huge bonus for them, saying, okay, these guys are ready to rock. And it will be actually good, even if no investor would buy it for whatever reason. Well, you may make actually incremental revenue, and that is something we will talk about at a next webinar, how we as an organization can help you sell into the roughly, I don't exactly know, 1 billion market of the countries that we're actually present in. Okay, so this is the one slide that you can add on your presentation. And here a quick summary of things that you must consider when fundraising. Have an amazing team. No amazing team, no money. And if money, then not smart money, and therefore amazing team. Have a bold vision. Where does it go? And bold means you envision something very concretely for the next 5 to 10 years where you want to go, even if this is not possible today because you don't have all the technology, that's perfectly fine. But if you come across confident enough that this can be developed over the next couple of years, then that is a really good thing. Have an innovative product. If you have the next shopping list on Android, nobody cares. But if you have something that is compelling, everybody loves it. Have a compelling business model as well. Rock solid go-to-market strategy. Customer user sentiments online. That is something we haven't really talked about, but when you have a product or a prototype, start selling it. Don't keep it until it's the very perfect product. This is one of these things that is as old as probably entrepreneurship since the beginning of Industrial Revolution. Get out into the market and don't worry that people copy you. Nobody can copy you. They can go better than you, but if they can, they will do that any given point in time. Then rather and better you fail now than in 5 years and burn through all the investment money and look like very stupid. Have some initial revenue and growth projection, financial plan, burn rate, clean cap table, and so forth. So you will have access to this presentation anyway, but I just want to sum up and want to make sure we have some time for Q&A. There is a Flight 9 accelerator. We don't have the dates yet, but I will just start telling you. Flight 8 was really, really good. Was one of our top accelerators, I have to say. Very cool teams, very cool products, very engaging. We have a community, worldinnovationsforum.org, WIForum.org, WIN, World Innovations Network. Join the community. We just started it, so it's pretty empty, but it only starts when people get in. And what you can do there, you can ask all the questions that you ever wanted to ask, and you will have a couple of very cool and knowledgeable people who help you answer the questions. So the World Innovations Forum Conference competition is between June 23 and 25. We have 4 teams each day, so it's a total of 12 teams presenting. So I would like to ask you now to consider overhauling your presentation when you when you're already registered. If you haven't already registered and we haven't seen the presentation, please register for presenting. Then on Friday, June 12th, this is next week, I believe, 10 o'clock p.m. GMT, we want you, whoever want to redesign their presentation, and probably most of you will, and whoever had not registered yet, please register and send your pitch deck that you will present by June 12th, 10 p.m. GMT. So we will use your pitch deck, and we will put, just so you know, all the presentations for the 3 days. We cannot do switch back and forth, so we will have them all together. And this is a lot of work, so therefore we need to have your presentation by then, and that's the presentation that you are going to use when you present. So if you need any help, ask Marita. She will help you. She helped all the startups and all the accelerators work on all these things together. Send it to contact@wiforum.org, which will get to Marita. And if you have not sent in a presentation yet and not registered, on the registration page, there is a presentation mechanism, upload mechanism. So then next Tuesday, June 16, everybody who has been here and everybody who has sent the presentation in basically will present, and that will make the final selection. So on Tuesday, June 16, 8:30 GMT, everybody who wants to present should be on that URL, go to webinar.com, similar like today, and we'll pitch. You will pitch for 2 or 3 minutes, and we will select the top 12 best plus 2 backup. We always have probably 15 best as a selection. And then on June 17, we will announce the winner. So June 16, everybody, so we will have probably 20 presentations. And on June 17, we will announce the winner. So we will send you who is presenting an email. And then on June 23 to 25, the 12 best companies present, and we will have 2 backups in case somebody falls out or cannot present for whatever reason. Yeah. So that means finalist selection pitch, June 16, 3-minute presentation sharp. We cut off 3 minutes because, I mean, if 10 people present, that's already 30 minutes. If 20%, that's 60 minutes, and we have 1.5 hours. So it will be tough, and we invite all of you to join, because even if you're not present, you will probably learn from the presentation what people do, and we will give a very quick 30-second good presentation, tough, you need to work on, or something like that. And then jury gives a second feedback, and then June 17, you will be informed from us by email. Hey, very cool, super, like what you do, you're on. And then the big event is on June 23 to 25, and we will probably have about 1,000. I think the tips right now are more like 2,000 attendees. And you introduce your company, tell your story, where you want to take it, and what do you offer. I mean, you go through the 10 slides or whatever you have. If it's 12, then it's 12, but don't come with 20 slides. And you have 3 minutes sharp. And then there will be question and answers. So we have investors who are in the jury, and they will ask, all kinds of questions, and you will answer them also very short. I mean, the whole sections are, I think it's 15 minutes, including the switches. So we have 10 minutes per startup, 3 minutes presentation, 7 minutes Q&A. And so purposely use the Q&A for everything important that you want to convey, because the obvious question will come. Please don't make the answer's a new story. That is one of the things where startups sometimes screw up by, basically talking to death. Answer the question, concise, precise, short, done. Yeah. So with that, I think we have the story very well in order, and I hope you have a good time for now till June 16 to make your presentation stellar, compelling, so that the investors from around the world send you checks right away and finance your company. But I'll go back to this slide in case there are questions, and I give it back to Alyssa.
Thank you very much, Axel. I did not know, is Marita going to be saying anything as well?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Marita, I think are you on?
Thanks, Alyssa. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to getting all your pitch decks in, and also will spend time to review it, because my personal return of investment is your success. So with your success, I really want to make sure that your presentation is stage ready. What always helps, and I like to encourage you, please invite all your friends, customers, also your existing investors to the event, because I think it's great seeing you on stage and having familiar community also around you. That helps a lot, when you present your company. So looking forward to your decks. Open for all your questions. I will not run your company. I will only put inputs. Thanks. Okay, so I give back now to the question to Alyssa.
Yes, we have had a few questions coming in. If anybody has any questions, please put it in the question box. I will try and answer them as much as I can, or I'll have Axel answer them. So we've had a couple. One came from South Korea, based on your presentation at the beginning, and they said, what can I do making strategies if you're a younger person, a younger businessman, and what can we decide on making more prospective plans for the future? And like, how can young people really get started in the entrepreneur game and get their fundraising started? Most people, as you know, won't really and possibly invest in a younger crowd, but what can you do to make yourself look better?
Okay, yeah, good question. So no matter how old or young you are, I mean, old is sometimes way more complicated than young. But the best thing you can do, and again, this is no matter how old you are, surround yourself with other entrepreneurs. I would say in a ranking of 1 to 100, this is a 100. Surround yourself with other entrepreneurs. I mean, there is nothing more important than that, because this is where you get so much inputs, insights, experiences, how others think, how they do, what they did, where they failed, where they won, and so forth. And I could give you a whole list of other things, but if you do that, the list of other things is actually covered. Yeah. So get to know other entrepreneurs and exchange.
That's a great answer. Our next question, how do you fundraise for a nonprofit organization?
Yeah, that is this is for many a difficult one, and I have to be very honest. I mean, the World Innovations Forum Foundation is a nonprofit organization, and we failed fundraising in the first place. I think there's no reason not to say that. And for nonprofit organizations, fundraising is fundamentally different because there is no return on investment. So the investment is a giving, and then there's options of business models. So it depends on if you have a so-called hybrid business model, it might be a little bit different. But what I just said for the other gentleman or for the other person, surround yourselves with other NGO people or nonprofit organization people. This is what I did, and I got a lot of feedback, what to do, how to present, how to make possible structures that fundraising will be possible. But fundraising is not really fundraising in a nonprofit. It's actually donations. So you have to beg for money that you can do your great things. And so I would actually, and this is what I did myself, is I made myself comfortable with there is no fundraising per se, even though people like that because it's financially a more attractive term, but it's begging for money. And if you do something extraordinarily good, so there are people who support you in this activity by giving you money to continue. But if you're apparently just starting, also you have to understand that you will have to have at least 1, 2, 3, 4 employees, and they don't want to stay in a company where, oh, fundraising is over. Do I have a job next week? Or, oh, the budget is now eaten up. Can we stay? Or is there a chance that would be a very bad situation? And many NGOs living this inside out. So therefore, I would say, send me an email and I can probably explain a couple more option things more than this Q&A session would allow. But there are a couple things that you can do, and there are even organizations who pull together NGOs to rethink how NGOs is actually working in the future. Yeah.
Great. The next question comes from Afghanistan. They said, how do you attract investors in a country like Afghanistan, which many investors are not interested in investing in? What other ways are there to get funding from investors, other than from investors? Sorry.
Okay. So if you go to our website, wiforum.com/blog, and search 3, 4, 5 sections down, there is a blog post, 10 alternative ways of getting funded. It's an old blog post, but it's still very valid. Maybe it's even on the right side of the blog with the most read blog posts. But it explains a little bit. I mean, probably the best version is a crowdfunding campaign, because crowdfunding basically pre-finances your products that you don't have yet, but be sure that you will have it. Don't mess with crowdfunding, because that would be the worst thing you can do. And other things, obviously the friends and family, and there's a bunch of options. There are 10 of them. And I think if you search for that blog post, that's probably the best answer.
Great. Next question. What type of investor is good for fundraising?
Sorry, what time?
Type of investor.
Oh, well, there are classical angel investors. And when you are in the early rounds at little revenue and just getting basically now into the mode of growing the company, then angel investors are typically the best. It's the best version of a seed round is with angel investors. And even though it's unfair to those who haven't made investments yet and looking for startups, don't look for an investor who has not done at least 3 angel rounds. And again, it's unfair to these guys, but who told you that life is fair. You don't want to work with an angel investor and you are the first investment, because you have much bigger fish to fry than dealing with investments. Let them figure it out with others. And so when you're having a seed round already from an angel investor and you grow rapidly, then the next type would be a venture capital firm, a VC. And that is typically a so-called A round. And these numbers, these are arbitrary definitions. And they come from Silicon Valley, actually, where we have A and B and C and D rounds. And if you ask why is it an A round, well, because I mean, it's really no no definition. It just started somehow that way, and this is how it's going. And so these two types of investors are probably the best. Before a seed round, the so-called F&F, friends and family, is probably a good investor type. And even if it's small money, but it's good in two ways. One, it's proven that you are risking the relationship with people that are probably closest to you, friends and family, because if this investment goes south, you're screwed up with your friends and with your family. And so if this isn't okay, then a seed investor is probably proud of you and is happy to join if the concept is actually any value. Friends and family, number two, seed investors, angels, number three, venture capital.
Great, that's a good answer to that question. Next one I have is, how do you value a company who has X revenue versus how do you value a company that has 0 revenue or no traction?
If a company has no traction, I would say don't try to raise funds. It will be just terrible. You may find an investor, but you will find investors that are of no great value, because an investor that is investing in a company that has no traction either has no clue or sees an opportunity for getting something cheap, but just doesn't know what it takes to get actually traction, and therefore get traction first. We had this term, no traction, no funding. And out of this, there came a lot of this was actually our first or second accelerate. No traction, no funding, no traction. So they created actually a song around it because they liked it so much. And no traction, no funding. I mean, just unfortunately take it as that. Fortunately, we have so many tools to get traction that there should not be any company on this planet that has no ability to get traction and therefore needs funding. This is just not logical for me. Yeah.
Great. We have a bunch more questions that have come in. We do have some more time if everybody wants to stick around so I can continue asking. But the next one we have is, what can you do to have an amazing team for those who want to build a multi-billion-dollar company with only a vision and a dream?
Okay, so here is a great question, because if you are ambitious and have a great team, you will get amazing co-founders, an amazing team together. You just need to articulate both your ambition and the dream as good as humanly possible, not as a sales pitch, but just what it is, and try to draw a picture about your dream. So when I started my first company and I told my boss, then he was laughing and saying, actually this would never work. And so, but I made it so clear to him that he was still going. He said, it's amazing. I mean, if that would work, this would be just very cool, but I think it can't. I mean, nobody made this ever work, but I drew a very clear picture. And at the end of the day, when I actually put my resignation in and, said, it's the last day, as you know, he said, what, are you open for investments? And that was just a dream at this point in time. I said, yes, I am. And so he said, I talked to your friend, Jochen, and he would actually invest too. And I thought, wow, okay. So, and this was my first company. I was totally ambitious. I had a super career. I mean, probably a dream career in my life. I mean, straight up, but I could draw the picture of where I want to go. And I had these two guys investing in me. These two guys became my partners. And these two guys with me together, we drove this basically $10 billion. Now it's actually a $37.5 billion company. So it started with a dream, but this next dream was actually the same. And the next dream was Blue Roads, and this was in Silicon Valley. And this was right after the bubble crashed, the internet bubble. And we wanted to go fundraising, and we had September 11. So obviously there was no fundraising. and we had to bootstrap, and this was really tough time. And this was when we finally actually made our seed round a half year later, $2 million, one of the biggest seed rounds in the Valley, again, because of a big dream. But the big dream was obviously supported by successes I had in my past. But it was also not possible. I mean, many investors said, actually, I mean, you had a great idea in the past and you had a great success, but this is not working. But I told one of them, and he said, you know, you need to sharpen your idea. And so that's what you need to do. Sharpen your idea that it makes a logical, plausible, big vision type thing, and calculate it through and do basically not necessarily a 20-page business plan or so, but make all the facts and figures that you have in your mind. And then you can go try to pitch this to friends and top people that you want as your co-founders in the company. Yeah.
Okay, great. Another one we have is, do you see any personality traits for successful investment acquisitions? As an entrepreneur, can you develop that for those?
Say the beginning, it wasn't quite.
Do you see any personality traits for successful investment acquisitions? And as an entrepreneur, can you develop those personality traits?
Okay. You know what? You don't need it. People who get to, I mean, personality training or try to acquire tricks and gags and whatever, they don't change you. I mean, they may change your appearance, but investors, the good investors, I mean, friends of mine telling me they have seen between 1,000 and 10,000 presentations or decks. I mean, they have been through every bullshit on earth, so to speak. Sorry if I'm using these terms. So you don't need a way to overcome that one because they have seen it all. So if you are you and just your dream and you don't care, absolutely, possibly, with 100% certainty, don't care what others think. That's when you are you. And that's the best way you present yourself. There is nothing you need to change or mimic or emulate or making a show. I mean, like I said in the beginning, you don't need to present like Stephen Jobs. I mean, he is seen oftentimes as one of the biggest presenters in our space, in our industry, but you don't need to, because he was him. Everything he did was he in his personality. He didn't train that. And when I was 20 something and I had my first investor presentation, I mean, I was this odd kid, so to speak. I mean, you wouldn't believe who I was. But I was just me, and I did not care. You know, I mean, it's like, you know, if you don't love me like you love me, like I am, then it's not working out. And this is with investors the same. So don't worry about yourself. Be you. This is the only thing you worry. And if you are odd because you think that you want to build something that connects all the galaxies together, and this is your wildest dream, and you have an idea how to do that, then that's what you present. I mean, obviously that's exaggerating, but that is what you do. Because if you make it so that it looks better or it looks sharper or it looks whatever, I mean, it doesn't matter. And trust me, I mean, and investors have seen people coming into presentations, you know, accompanied by some human aid in a wheelchair. And I mean, we have seen all kinds of things. And investors are not looking for the shiny star. I mean, it's actually the opposite. They're looking for the real people, and you need to be real. That's all.
Perfect. I'm gonna have just answer a couple more questions, 2 more questions, and then if we did not get to your question, we will definitely correspond with you afterwards if we can't answer it. The next one I have, this one is related to COVID-19 and Corona. And I know we had a previous webinar that was focused on this topic, but someone has asked about it and they said, how do you keep your team together in this pandemic situation like Corona? You know, everybody is worried that the business might go down, especially in the field of a handicraft. How do you keep that team together and motivated to continue?
Yeah, so indeed, we had this webinar before. Actually, I have one in the afternoon. I don't know where the question comes from. Doesn't
I
matter.
don't have the country, but we have the name, so we can contact them if we need.
Yeah,
She's
it's a
from
webinar
Nepal.
in
They're
Albania.
from Nepal.
And just sort of the short answer is, you know, we had pretty much every 5 to 20 years, everything in between. We had crisis, oil crisis, we had the bubble burst, we had September 11, we had the prime rate crisis and massive unemployment rates. And, you know, this goes back probably the last 300,000 years. So number one, you will need to do one thing: never give up. Never, ever. I mean, that's rule number one. Number two, ask your team to stay with you, and there might be a situation that you cannot pay the bills anymore. Let them know early on. I mean, you need to be as transparent as possible and as fair as honest as possible. And you will also need to tell them that in order to keep the company alive, you may need to give, you know, 2 or 3 people the goodbye sign. But if they want to stay with you anyway because they cannot find another job, you know, rank this as the highest thank you that you can ever get in your life. And keep them all involved in the plans. And if it goes south, it goes south. I mean, no matter what. But whenever we had these crises, and I went through several of them myself, transparency and involvement is probably the best medicine, so to speak. And at the end of the day, yeah, there are victims. I mean, you know, when we have, I think, what is it, over 500,000 dead. I mean, that's far worse than everything we have in our business. And people who are worried about the business, you know, let's be also worried about the lives that are already, you know, basically taken by the virus. But yeah, keep together. I mean, and every business is different and every situation is different. Societies are different, the countries are different, and so on. But keeping together, I mean, to the last day, I mean, that's all I would actually recommend.
Great. And the last question for today, as a startup, if an investor is interested in investing or having shares in the company, shall an entrepreneur go with it or be afraid of it because it means giving up a part of the company?
So, I mean, if you're looking for investment and the investor wants equity, that's absolutely fair. I mean, I would never invest without getting equity in return. I would not give a loan because the loan in a startup would be a complete idiotic process. I mean, the risk, and if you give money anywhere, anyhow, you always assess risk and a reward, because money is not. I mean, it's just a certificate for work, and if we share a certificate for work with you, then we want something in return, and that is regularly equity. And this need to be in, you know, in alignment with your valuation. And if you don't need money, you will not take it. I mean, please not. Why should you? I mean, the valuation in 2 months is higher than it's today, and in 5 months it's higher than 2 months ago. And so you will look for money when you need it, but not if somebody offering it. And there are people, if somebody offers money, then you take it. You know, that is their personal rule, but not for an entrepreneur. You take money when you really, really need it. I think it was slide number 2 or 3. Yeah.
That's a great way and a great way to end this presentation. So I just want to say thank you. Axel, Maria, do you have anything else to say to this? Nope. Perfect. So I want to say thank you for everybody who participated today. We have had a bunch of questions that came in that didn't get answered, and we will individually reach out to you with those answers. And also, we will be sending out the presentation and link to the video, so if you missed anything, you can rewatch it. Again, we are looking forward to having all of your pitches is being submitted. Make sure the deadline is this Friday, June 12th. The application is still available online. The entrepreneurship application is available online on the WIForum digital conference page. So if you want to submit and you haven't, please do so there. And if you have any questions, please reach out to contact@wiforum.org and we will get back to you. Thank you again, Axel, for a great presentation. And we look forward to seeing you guys all next week if you join us again. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, too. Yeah, thank you,
you.
Alyssa.
Bye.
Thanks, Ian. Bye-bye.